House.
Yeah.
And it's,
Yep. We can start again.
and again. And hello and welcome to Block West. My name's Melissa Mean. I'm Director of Weekend Make here at Null West Media Centre, and I'm completely delighted to be here in the sunshine inside the beautiful Block West, which is a pop-up pavilion which has appeared in the last 2 weeks here in the grounds of Null West Media Centre. And I'm joined here by Molly Claypool.
Hi, I'm one of the directors of Automated Architecture, and I'm also a co-director of Automated Architecture Labs, the Bartlett School of Architecture. And yeah, we're sitting here in Block West.
Yeah, and we were just kind of reminiscing about when we first met, which is probably about a year ago.
Yes.
Not more than that.
Yep.
And I think we were sat down for a cup of tea inside the Weekend Make house, and kind of things just clicked from there. And I remember you kind of opening up your laptop and just showing me a kind of one thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing.
We were kind of in a stage in the research lab where we had a lot of things, but we didn't have something like a pitch deck together or a website that had all of our work in one place. So I literally opened up Google Drive and started opening files to show you of projects. And I remember it felt like that conversation happened. It was the smoothest conversation I had with someone who I was trying to figure out if it was the right fit to collaborate with.
Yeah.
We just hit it off immediately in terms of our missions and values about what we want to make with communities.
Yeah, we often like to describe ourselves here as a kind of living lab. So we're mixing up art, community, tech, and seeing what we can kind of make together. Yeah. And we quite often get people kind of coming in and saying, oh, can we come and do something with you? And quite often they come here and they look at Null West and they go, well, that's top 5 deprivation neighbourhood, it's council built estate. We've got something here that can fix your kind of problem.
Poverty tourism.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Whereas it could just feel that you came in with a completely different mindset that totally got here and knew that if you just scratch the surface here, then there's all sorts of kind of richness, amazing people, amazing stuff that combined in the right way can do fantastic things. And it just felt that sense of possibility was just there immediately with you.
Yeah, well, it also felt like you guys just had so much trust already built in the community that we couldn't come in and do the kind of work that we're trying to do without really building a lot of trust. And because you as the media center had that trust already, been here for a long time, you knew the community so well in and out, you were able to kind of guide our thinking in a way that I think that if we had tried to parachute in any way, whether with the media center or not, we would have just been completely unsuccessful in trying to do anything of any value.
Yep.
And I think also one of the things that's really important for us is just that we're interested in real positive change. And real positive change takes time, and it takes sensitivity, and it takes a lot of listening. And that, I think, is very different than the strategy of how you've experienced with other people coming in, where they think that they can get really quick results. But no community is going to instantly change the way that they live for someone telling them what to do. You have to really build over time that change. It's incremental. And I think that the media center just has that relationship already, and it was really interesting for us to think, okay, yeah, we're in it for the long haul too. Let's try and figure out how we can really transform this world one little step at a time.
Yeah. And I think, our mission is always about, okay, how do we get some of these tools, this power in the hands of our community members?
Yeah.
And I do have to say, it's pretty cool that, you're genuinely somebody who says they work with robots and actually does, which is really kind of cool.
Love a robot.
Yeah. And so that's pretty exciting and kind of felt really kind of real. So we should probably talk about what we actually did.
Yeah. I mean, excuse me. So we had that conversation a year ago. It was me and Melissa and Hannah, and we sat outside the prototype house at Philwood Community Center, and we went away for a few weeks afterwards, actually, and sort of had some thoughts. And then I think we had a kind of really natural email exchange where we found a couple of funding calls.
Yeah, funding application frenzy. Yeah.
And then we went on an application frenzy for about 2 months trying to apply for money.
Yeah.
And we got almost everything that we applied for.
It's a good hit rate, yeah.
Yeah, we had a really good hit rate. So we ended up doing 2 projects together, one of which resulted in Block West, and one of which resulted in another project, another demonstration that will be happening here next week. And the project that resulted in Block West is a project funded by Transforming Construction, Network Plus, from their Small Projects Awards, and we received a pot of funding to try and develop, I guess, a way of working together more than anything in the end. That would be, I mean, I don't know what you think, but I think it's about building a sustainable way of working across technology, people, place, and architecture. In the end, was what the project pitch was really about. As much as it was about tools and tech, it was also about a workflow and a kind of way of talking to one another that could sustain itself for a long period of time.
Yeah. And adapt.
And change. Yeah. A framework for working.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got this lot of funding, which has resulted in our lovely Mediterranean villa. And we basically decided that we would run a project over 6 months. Well, we were asked to run a project over 6 months. And the project was due to start in March or February. I can't quite remember now. And then we basically realized that lockdown was coming.
Yeah, so we'd done a really nice kind of call out, so kind of, to see who might be interested in the community and getting involved. So, the offer being, come and learn some digital design and construction tools, try this stuff out for yourself. How could you apply this in your life, in your home, in your neighbourhood? And so we got a brilliant cohort of local people, kind of aged 19 to 76, who are up for this. And we managed to have one big event in our factory at the end of February, when we were all together and we were kind of playing with all sorts of tools, from virtual reality, building stuff, playing with a CNC machine, building robots. Fantastic. And really hands-on, like amazing. And I think that's when we imagined that's how the rest of the project was going to be.
We thought we would all be in one room together, one big room together, making amazing stuff physically all the time.
And then 2020 happened. Hooray!
Didn't happen. But I think, ultimately our goal originally was to develop an augmented reality tool that could help people make the kinds of spaces that they need in their community and the kind of homes that they want for their future, using what's called a modular method of construction system, which is what Block West is constructed out of. And obviously, if you can't work in person, you can't use augmented reality to develop how to build something, because you literally need to be in a space physically. So we had to change I think we changed it within 3 weeks. We came up with a new way of working. And that was pretty wild on our side, like in our side, in the company side, and the lab side. That was a very quick development pivot to make. And I think I'm really lucky to be surrounded by a team who were just completely up for it. Thank you, Kevin Say, who essentially sat down and developed a digital design tool for everybody who was working with us in Knoll West to use at home, so that we could actually work with people through a virtual space without feeling like they couldn't be making something.
Yeah. And then alongside that amazing, hugely impressive by your team turning that around. And then it's the kind of stitching together the kind of more analog stuff below that as well, because in our kind of community members, some people barely used a kind of an iPhone before, a smartphone before. And so being able to get a layer of tech out to them, that means that they could actually connect into that and making sure they could actually access some kind of Wi-Fi. So there were lots of kind of special little deliveries around Knoll West to make sure that everyone could be part of that journey on a kind of equal kind of footing.
Yeah, I ended up putting together I bought like 500 paper bags and put together little making at home kits on my kitchen table. And then my father-in-law spent Wednesday delivering them around Knoll West to a lot of very surprised crew members, actually. But I think it just stitched everyone together. I think that's the right word that you used, stitched. It just brought everyone into the same space without actually being in the same space.
Yeah. So, and I think it's certainly kind of early lockdown, very isolating experience for a lot of people in our community. So, and they speak about this in their own terms, that it's actually incredibly important having those Fridays together.
Yeah.
And then also a shared mission in between those Fridays, that people were kind of working on stuff.
Yeah.
That we did create that network and sense of a shared space and shared endeavour.
I think shifting to working virtually, it required us to really realize what we were missing in terms of what we had built into the project as infrastructure and support. And that was something that really blew my mind, actually, is how much more, and has continued to blow my mind in perpetual lockdown, is how much virtual support we actually need to put in place in order to enable people to participate in projects like this. So we had to increase our amount of team members, we had to increase the amount of tech support days that we had to really just kind of build, we just exploded the project, I'd say, by at least 30% in terms of time. But if we hadn't done that, it would have resulted in a feeling like it was a very superficial project, and it would have been a complete failure. But we were doing that completely on the go all the time, weren't we? We were just like, okay, today do we need to do tea time with everyone? Would that make people feel good, or do we not do it? Is it too much? Are people overstimulated, or do they need a break? And in the end, it was nice because I think people chose what they wanted to do and how they wanted to participate, and felt like they could, no, I don't want to join at 4:30 on a Friday for a cup of tea. I want to just not see you for another week, and I'll join later. But that was, I think, a great leveler, actually, was having expanded that support and allowed people to participate in the ways that they could.
Yeah, and I think incredible kind of response from some of the community members in terms of what people made, what they created, like really hands-on, like, I think John kind of redid his entire back garden and created a double house for himself. It's like just incredible, the kind of inspiration and the kind of like the kit of tools to be able to kind of support that, and then what happened there. It was just quite amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. I think I think we were really lucky to have such an incredibly generous group of people who came in with such open minds.
Many of them meeting each other for the first time.
I mean, not even meeting each other for the first time. Maybe knew about each other, but they didn't know how they would all each be or what they would bring to the table in this kind of setup that we've been working in. So I think it was real. They all took a massive leap into the unknown. That kind of openness and generosity, we wouldn't have been able to do what we've done. So it's really 100% down to them that this has been able to be what it's been, I think. And I think in individual conversations with each of them, they've exceeded their own expectations of what they could possibly bring into the project, which is pretty special, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we kind of talk about kind of modern methods of construction, and because quite a lot of jargon in this and things like that. And I just remember a conversation with Megan, one of the participants, and she's going, what is MMC? What are you talking about? And then Q on a few kind of like weeks later, she's like, oh, if you'd asked me if I could have built something like this, I'd always said hell no. But she's gone, go on, ask me again. And I said, hell yes, I can do it. Which is just like, whoa, what a massive journey to go on. It's just
no, it's a huge journey to go on. And I think, making that shift also from, working virtually to all of a sudden being together was also really big. So like we had this workshop series that we did virtually, and then we kind of went away. And in terms of the design team, I went away and kind of sat with what had happened for a little while, and then we had to come back to everyone and say, okay, this is what we think might be possible given what you've told us.
It's probably because what the kind of brief was like what's missing from the neighbourhood.
Exactly.
And I think this is definitely not a COVID response project in any way. It was kind of designed before and whatever. But I think when we're thinking about what's missing from our neighbourhood and the kinds of things that people were coming up with, there was definitely a sense that, okay, these are different kinds of times, and we do need different kinds of kind of shared space and connection to support that. And I think the kind of like the initial ideas that fed into this design really, really kind of responded to that.
They definitely did. I think that, there was ideas about we need spaces to be together yet apart. We need spaces where I can rest. We need spaces where we can meet, but meet safely. We need spaces that feel like home but aren't home. We need spaces that can live on longer than this project will live. So what kinds of spaces are those? What can we do with it afterwards? How will it how will it continually to be used? If it is something that can adapt and change, which was part of the original brief, what would that look like given the current context? And so there was a lot of richness was almost completely overwhelming, really. And I think making that shift, like from working in workshops to actually thinking about what we were going to make, it was a big shift. And trying to embody all of that was, I think we did it in the end, but it was a difficult moment thinking, have we been able to embody enough so that everyone feels safe, that everyone feels heard, like everyone feels like they have some ownership of it, everyone feels like an author.
They could recognise their work in the bigger piece.
Yeah, and that we don't have to necessarily be the one being like, that's what you did, but they could be like, oh yeah, I know that, I did that, I'm totally aware that that's mine.
Yeah, shared authorship. It's
shared
quite,
authorship,
to do that in a way in that way is it's a light task.
What was it like the moment that you saw the options? We provided 3 options, right?
Yeah.
So what was the moment like for you when you saw those first 3 options? Because obviously I had seen them under development, so.
I mean, I have to say, it was love at first sight for the one that finally won for me. It's just like, oh my word, that just fits. It just works with the site, it works with the building, and then I could recognise the kind of bits in there. And I was like, yeah, the other ones are nice, but I was like, come on, I gotta go with this one. And I think this design did get a landslide kind of vote among both the cohort members, the crew members, and also the kind of wider staff that we kind of got to vote as well. So it was, but it's kind of it suddenly became very real. All this kind of stuff we're speculatively doing in kind of virtual space. Suddenly you go, oh, okay. And then also I had to go and really have a serious talk to kind of like, our buildings manager and things like that and say, oh yeah, it's actually really going to happen.
We thought maybe it wouldn't, but it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, I mean, I think as a team we were really clear on what our favorites were. Although there were elements of some of this is the biggest one, just for those who may or may not be watching.
Of course, it's the biggest.
One.
We chose the biggest.
It's the biggest. It reaches over a pathway as well. So there's a big beam that goes down and then kind of another side to it. So it's quite big, and it really takes up the space. It fills the space outside of the media center. And the other ones were kind of much smaller, a little bit more intimate, and a bit tighter. And they had beauty to them too, but I think we just looked at this and we thought, that's what it should be for sure. And it's also, in terms of technical ambition, the most ambitious too, which we were.
I'm glad that nobody held back. Do you know what I mean? Just nobody held back.
Nobody held back. No, although there was one person that voted. So it was a unanimous vote, no? Like everyone except one person voted for one of the smaller ones. But it's
but I think that person then reoccupied this with nature. So I think they kind of like, they get very, very happy.
We did have those renderings first that didn't have any kind of programming, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then David put together some renders that showed it as a tropical paradise. We thought
we can work with that
one. That sounds like a good idea.
But we should probably talk about the moment of kind of being on site for the first time, which is incredible, actually.
I mean, it was quite terrifying because we showed up, we came the weekend before, me and Kevin and you, and I can't remember who else was here, Hannah maybe, and kind of set up our factory outside of the factory.
Yeah, actually, a call out for Chris at the factory at the media centre, who, in a matter of 5 days, cut all of these blocks, all these pieces to arrive flat pack for her. So it would have been impossible without Chris.
After the rework ban as well.
Yeah,
that was epic. I mean, but we set up the factory and we kind of had everything in place. We had all our mallets and it was it was a pretty beautiful setup. No, we kind of spent a few hours making it really beautiful, going, God, this is a nice picture. I wonder what it's going to be like when there's actually people here. This might be a mess. Did we do it right? And then people showed up, and one of the things that I thought was really important was to make the feeling of being together similar in ethos to the feeling of being how we were working on Zoom. So I like to do these check-ins, which means that everyone talks about how they're feeling. And I think it just, I don't know how, it can be really revealing and make people feel really vulnerable, for sure. But it can also be a really good leveler for the day, can't it?
Yeah, it just brings you into the space and you're there.
Yeah, and you're not kind of Because another thing with doing community-led builds is that you don't want anyone to rush, because you can't necessarily account for the kind of increased domino effect of injury or mistakes or anything like that. So you want people to really feel grounded and
and all the background
calm.
stuff for what people got going on at home, what else they're bringing in,
Yep.
and how to bring that in a safe way, and then leave it, and then be able to work together.
Exactly. And just know that they can be like here, and that's okay right now, and they don't have to be anywhere else. And I think that was the favorite part of most of a few people's days, was doing those check-ins and checkouts.
I think it's also very lovely about our, so the crew was made up of kind of local people. So our cohort are kind of 10 designers, and then also wider people in the community. But I think, wasn't really like the average kind of construction site.
No.
I think over 50% women, female, which is fantastic.
Yep.
And kind of real good age range between, I think our youngest person was, I think 12 was the youngest, actually.
Yeah. Well, if you can include Archer, 3.
3. Okay. Yeah.
You banged a few T-nuts.
Yeah. Okay.
But actually working, about 12.
Yeah.
Was our youngest.
So it did feel like a kind of special kind of crew.
Yeah.
And just the joy of being together and making something together after lockdown. I don't think any of us realized how much we missed that being together.
No, I don't think so. I think there's this idea that we can still get what we need out of working virtually, but actually humans need physical intimacy.
Totally.
And that physical intimacy can literally only be gained by being physically in the same space together.
Yeah. Sometimes you can't fake.
You can't fake it, I presume. You can try in a VR environment too, but you can't. There's so much about being human, about working in the same space together. So being together was really a moment. And it was interesting too, because although we had worked with, 10 people over the course of the months over the workshops, we had new people coming into our crew for the build too, as much as we had some of the people who had been working with us. Although I think almost everyone from the workshops worked with us at some point during the build. But we had, I think, a new crew kind of emerged, core crew almost emerged out of the build process, of people that had been working with us for a long time and people who are new to the process of the project. And that was really amazing to watch, because you couldn't fall into complacency with your day, because there was always new people who either needed to be trained up or, mainly needed to be trained up from my perspective, need to be risk assessed, and brought into the fold, and kind of anticipating what that would be like for everybody else was a constant kind of shift and change. So it actually played off of the project really well, because the project is all about an architecture that can adapt and change and shift to community or collective or individual needs. So this is a project kind of helped that process of working together, kind of, I think, forced us to really think through how we would do that, right? At a real scale, which was really nice. Yeah.
And I think it's also, one of the things that I highlighted, the project is about automation. It is about kind of doing different things. I think everyone working on that build has definitely got what their favorite job that they're most like a robot to do instead of a human now.
Yeah.
I definitely got my ones that I definitely don't want to do.
What's your favorite job?
It's the screwing around the corner. How do you tighten the bolts? You definitely need a robot arm to get in there to do that.
It's very difficult to automate that. I will say, though, it's really, really, really hard. The easiest thing to automate of things that we didn't already automate, like the milling, would be the glue. That would be
getting exactly the right amount of glue in the right place.
Would be perfect to automate. I can definitely imagine doing that really quickly and easily. And also the nail gunning.
Okay. Yeah, that would be a good one.
Anything that's about like keeping kind of a kind of like rhythm, and you can serialize it and have a repetitive kind of action. Those are easy to automate, but so these blocks you have to reach inside and literally it's quite tough. You can't automate that. Unfortunately, Melissa, I'm sorry, your dream.
Okay, that could be the next project. We'll definitely invent that for the next one.
Not right now, but later. Yeah, everyone did find their own thing, didn't they? Their own thing that they hated to do, and their own thing that they loved to do.
Yeah. I think my favorite thing is definitely painting the roof. I'd happily do that any day. Get out there and paint the roof.
Yeah, there is an art form to the painting the roof. The only bit you can't see from the street. It is one of the most important ones.
Yeah, maintaining high standards there.
Waterproofing.
Yeah.
It's our only waterproofing.
Yeah, and not painting yourself into a corner that you then can't get down.
That is very true.
Yeah.
And there was people who loved only banging T-nuts, so only banged T-nuts for like 3 days straight. So I couldn't do that. My wrists
Yeah.
would hurt
So,
too
you know,
much.
there's a job for everyone within
Yeah,
this.
I personally like hanging almost like upside down, trying to put a block
Yeah.
in place. I like the tricky stuff.
And then, you know, it was a bit of a scramble to finish it on time.
Oh, it was quite stressful,
really stressful.
actually.
But
But it was the
almost-
only time I was actually stressed. I mean, the only time I was actually like felt like we had to really rush. You know, everything else was kind of, you know, we knew we were on top of it, right? But that last
But there was a lovely moment.
24 hours.
A lovely moment when we did finish, a little
Mm.
bit late. But again, like today, the sun came out. And the crew that were on site there was just a really lovely moment when it was finished, and then we all just found a little nook
yeah.
and lay down. And I think even a couple of people did actually go to sleep,
Yeah,
and we
Jill
just
fell asleep.
instantly occupied it as a resting space,
Mm.
and it was just, you know, beautiful.
It was really nice. It was really amazing to be able to occupy it the way that we had planned for so many months to
Yeah.
be able to occupy it. And it just kind of held us. You know, we'd made this thing and then it could hold us. It could hold us as a new community that we've
Yeah.
forged over the last however many months. It was a really amazing thing. I mean, there was still some painting of the roof going on when that happened, but thank you, John and Hannah.
But and I think, you know, that kind of feeling instantly at home, it was kind of like we haven't really talked about it yet, but
No.
Don, one of our brilliant community members, he's a fantastic genius gardener.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I've got a few plants, so you can come and get them if you
few.
like. And so we went over. Luckily, we took a big kind of trailer with John, another community member, because
So
he
cool.
filled that,
The moment that John drove in with you in the back,
waving at the
I
top
was
of the trailer.
like, whoa. Are those enough plants? But they were. I mean, obviously, I was like, wow, that is so many plants. But it was amazing the way that Don described it, actually. He was talking to me this morning, and he was saying, the reason why I could bring so many plants is because I keep them all in pots because I like to change my space. And
Nice.
so I want my environment to be able to adapt and change to my needs and wants and desires. And so that's why they're all in pots. And that's why I could bring so many. And I was like, that's why you did the project. Like, it's so obvious, you know?
Yeah.
And for me to kind of like really realize that so many months later, I was like, everything about you is embodied in what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And I think
And you're
that-
76.
Yeah, absolutely
You know?
amazing. But I think that then embodies something that we're trying to do at that larger scale in the
Yeah.
neighbourhood as well, which
Yeah.
is this is a 100-year-old council-built estate, which is kind of not meeting the needs of the people that are living here anymore. And so it needs to adapt, it needs to change.
And it
And
needs
do
to
it.
be appreciated, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, conserve and keep what's working, but it is adapt.
Yeah.
And, you know, and the top-down imported kind of cure for that would be to demolish this place and
Yeah.
rebuild it, and
Yeah.
you get an absolute crap here. Instead, this offers the chance of having the kind of tools that we can keep what works and add and adapt the other things to suit where we are now.
Yeah.
And these are genuinely the tools that we can do that with.
Yeah.
And I think that was the real power of this project, because it made that so tangible that people would feel that power and they were
Mm.
exercising that power to do that right now, which is
Yeah.
amazing.
It's funny because I mean, it's not funny, but we use the term in our work of the near now. So everything that we're trying to do can be realized with the tools that we have in the near now. So near now is tomorrow. Near now isn't in 10 or 15 years. So how can we set up projects and an infrastructure for projects to proliferate out of that can always take on board the technologies that we might have now, but recognize them and actualize them, make them happen in the near now. And that means that we're never being unrealistic about what we can do. We're always trying to realize things and be realistic about what's possible so that people don't lose sight of the ambition of the work, so that they don't feel like they can't get involved with the work, so they feel like they can do it, actually, that they can do that work, that they can put that labor in to you know, get involved in this kind of stuff, so that they can have some authorship and some agency. If we had come out here and we'd started like installing some industrial robots around, we would have terrified everybody. If we had thought that it was, you know, I would never think it would be a good idea to set up in the main studio like 3 robots that then assemble building blocks together, because that would feel so like writing the community out of the process entirely. So I think what we're doing now is we're trying to build up that infrastructure to support us understanding where is it important for this community to have these tools and technologies that might automate certain things, and where do they want to take that agency that they have? Where do they want to develop it? Where do they want to change it? And how can they therefore change their built environment too?
Yeah, and you have to build up that infrastructure. It's tech
Completely.
infrastructure, but it's social infrastructure. It's it's real kind of people, kind of soft stuff to get
Yeah.
that stuff right.
Yeah.
And you
it's
need
the
to invest in
things-
all of it.
Yeah, it's the things that you can't quantify often as well. In the same way, you can't quantify it through, it's not like necessarily financially quantifiable. It's slightly outside of the confines of how we think about built environment projects, right? Which are oftentimes built on financial modeling tools.
Yeah, it's
about
kind of
extracting as much financial value as possible. But
yeah,
where is
cost
that social
square,
value sit?
cost
Yeah.
per square meter. That's it.
Social value is so important to recognize just how much you can bring to the project and how much again, coming back to my earlier point, you have to build an infrastructure to sustain it.
Yep.
So if you don't have that trust with the community, and the community looks at you like you're not an equal, or you look at them like you're not an equal, you're never going to be able to build that social infrastructure to make that
Yeah.
project happen.
So I'm excited about where this project's going to go next.
We have so many ideas, don't
Yeah, and
we? I mean, some really
big.
big
Yeah.
ideas.
But I also love the small always counts as well, because sometimes the small is really big as well. So what I'm excited around is that, that crew that was emerging through this build. They're hopefully going to be involved in building our first We Can Make houses, which is fantastic. There's also
Given that crew such a confidence that they can really do it, and I'm so happy that this project gave them an opportunity to be trained in some of the ways that house.
Yeah.
Those house projects might have.
Yeah, and these are new possibilities for people who've been furloughed, people who feel they're going to lose their jobs.
Coming back to work after
Yeah.
time off.
Yeah. So a real different way of thinking about the kind of work that people are doing.
Yeah.
Really, really exciting,
Yeah.
and kind of people's kind of personal journeys, which is
I mean, you can
amazing.
imagine, several weekend crews existing around Knoll West that can deliver homes to people in relatively short periods of time, and you can imagine that kind of network of crews growing exponentially, right? And that's also the potential of
Yeah.
automation, is being able to understand how we can coordinate that knowledge and skill so that it's just, again, possible to make these things happen in a real sense.
And that is picking up your the near now. We're going to start building those houses next month, which is
Very cool.
it's very, very near now, which is great. And then the other kind of thinking about the kind of future as well. The original intention of this building was to have it up for a month, and deconstruct it, and then turn it into other objects that could be around the neighborhood, kind of planters and stages and benches and things like that, which is lovely. Kind of be able to stage kind of a bit of kind of public togetherness in different kind of places. But we've also kind of all fallen in love with it here as it is.
Yes,
Because it seems this indoor, outdoor space where you can be without having to buy anything. It's kind of like a rare kind of space in the city at the moment, and just kind of speaks to what we need now, that we kind of want to keep it.
Well, that's okay. We luckily can use more blocks, which is good. But it's one of those things where we're just like, so how can we still make those other things happen about the kind of dispersal into community, and also make more spaces like this at this scale too? And how can we also make more houses like this too? So on the next scale up, let's say, we have potential for a factory that will then make housing and then become housing project.
Yep,
Very exciting.
which is very, very exciting.
So the amazing thing about that is it's like a self-organizing system where you have an infrastructure that can create more versions of itself.
Yeah, I just love it.
I mean, golden, right?
Yeah, and our little baby factory can give birth to a bigger factory.
Baby factory gives birth to a bigger factory. Factory that's made for housing makes more housing that then turns into housing that creates a new factory. I mean,
I think this is the kind of psychedelic stuff of the 1960s kind of dreams, isn't it? Really?
I mean, I think we can find a lot of reference
Yeah.
to the 1960s and 1970s kind of counterculture, architectural ambitions. Let's put it like that. Those projects are projects that I love, and that I hold dear to my heart. But I think now we actually have the tools and technology to realize them in a way that really keeps the core values at its
And
heart.
be grounded and come from the community, which is amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a good choice of project title, wasn't it? Making Together. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been an incredible experience, actually.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with the We Can Make Homes with these first two bills. I think that there's a lot of energy that exists within the community towards taking chances, I guess, and those chances are not just chances in terms of trying to do new things in the community, but taking chances for themselves to try new things that could change the path of their life are on as individuals.
Yep.
And that's something that you oftentimes don't really see in process as they're happening with people. You kind of don't get that kind of that view of that change happening in real time. But I think what we're witnessing is through this project is we witness that change in real time for
Yep.
so many people, and that's been really incredible.
Yeah. Good stuff. Really good stuff. Yeah. And here's to more. Okay.
Should we wrap up there?
Yeah. Let's call that a wrap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice to be in conversation with you.
Yeah. It's very good.
And come see Block West.
Yeah. You can book a place. Go on the Null West Media Centre website. It's open for public bookings in Rule of 6, of course, every Thursday. And then there's a public program with artist residencies and all sorts of things coming up. So yeah, do go and check out the website.
Yeah, and pay attention to all of the other things we have going on.
Yeah.
You follow everyone on Instagram and Twitter and all those things, because we're constantly showing and engaging with the community that have been working with us as well, seeing what they're up to too.
Yeah. Be part of the movement.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks. Thanks. Do it again.
Here's Molly's microphone.
Oh, is my mic?
You're still live.
We're done.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We're just gonna walk away. I'm just gonna walk out of shot. Was it my mic being